I never could figure out why we need these 30 seconds, but. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Rye-Town Park Commission meeting of April 17th, 2018. Please rise, and I'm going to ask former Mayor Cosenzi to lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. For a moment of silence, there was a young man from Rybrook in the Blybrook School District, was a freshman at SUNY Binghamton. I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, João Souza, who was tragically killed in college yesterday. Thank you. Roll call, Debbie. And first, before you get to the roll call, let me announce, only Betty and I are the permanent members here tonight.
There you go.
Sitting in for Mayor Rosenberg.
Commissioner Hurd.
Emily, I'm sorry. I apologize.
How they forget.
I know, it's okay.
I
I'm new.
apologize. Sitting in for Mayor Rosenberg of Rybrook is former Mayor Sal Cosenzi, who sat on this commission for 8 years during the 1990s. And next to him, sitting in for Mayor Falanka, is Tom Nardi, a resident of Portchester, who also sits on the Rye-Town Council and is familiar with park operations as he participates in a lot of the volunteer work. He's a licensed plumber and helps all of the service people out at the park. Sitting in for Mayor Cohn is Sarah Goddard, and I know Sarah because in the last few years she's been very interested in the operations of the park, and we've spoken, so I know Sarah is well aware of everything going on.
Try.
Now, roll call, Deb, please.
Acting Commissioner Crescenzi.
Present.
Sorry. Acting Commissioner Crescenzi.
Present.
Acting Commissioner Nardi.
Present.
Commissioner Salanitro.
Here.
Commissioner Hurd.
Here.
Acting Commissioner Goddard.
Here.
President Zuckerman.
Here. And just one announcement. I mentioned this to the commissioners. We have a Rye-Town Council meeting immediately following at 7:30. So we're going to cover hopefully all of the business in thoroughly, but with great efficiency. And I'm going to try to keep to a timetable and move expeditiously. May I have, the first item is adoption of the minutes of March the 20th. I think that the commissioners may feel uncomfortable since 3 of them were not present, and I'm going to put that over till next month, Deb. Public comment on non-agenda items. Does any member of the public wish to speak on matters not on the agenda? Seeing none. Management report, please.
So our month of March to April was a story in an incredibly flexible staff and resilient staff. We have been all about getting the park set up and running and staff hired. There was a remarkable effort to get our point of sale system installed and up and running despite a parade of nor'easters. And I give incredible hats off to our park staff, to our T provider, Computronics, to our new electrical contractor, Nix Electric, Verizon, our accountant, Kathy Hamill, our veteran cashier, Clarissa Sprague. all came together for an incredible effort, and we were up and running on time this Saturday. So bravo to everyone. Other than that, I think we've been getting we have a new head cashier who is here. So this is
Welcome.
Jose Oliveros, who is a local guy from Portchester with multiple years of cashier experience, 6 years of leadership experience in working at Modell's, and we're very excited to have him on board. And he started hitting the ground running, to say the very least. And we're working on getting the rest of the staff up and trained, plans made. The mold remediation project has been going full steam. It started finally on April 6th, having been postponed several times due to storms. As we have all the mold, we've gotten a clean bill of health, having had the air scrubbed. We discovered asbestos in the floor. That's been remediated as well. And the park staff have been working to pull the spaces together themselves. Thankfully, they have those kinds of skills. Our architect, Lisa Easton, came out to inspect and gave us recommendations, and we've been following those. So I'm very proud of the park staff, and it's really been saving us a great deal of money. And I want to thank Commissioner Salanicho for his encouragement in that direction. That was great. Pond care, we have our pond management DEC permit, and the bubbler aerator is going in first thing, I think, later this week. Tomorrow? Yeah, that's later this week, isn't it? And as far as development goes, Bill Lawyer has done a yeoman's job getting sponsorships in. We lost a key sponsor this year, TD Bank, much to our dismay, and he is working on filling in.
Why did we lose TD Bank?
Well, we didn't get the grant this year. And we will be taking a different strategy next year when we submit our grant.
We keep a lot of money in TD
We
Bank.
do indeed.
We'll see if they're going to continue that trend.
In fact, I believe that Bill is preparing to approach TD's competitors for our grant this year. So we'll see how we do. And we have a full level of full program of events as usual. And I think that's long enough. Everything else is in writing.
Okay, thank you. Any
welcome.
questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, we will move on. We have a presentation from Peggy Peters of the Friends and Bill Lawyer. And Sarah, too? Oh, she's not on the agenda.
We're here because one of the things we've been working on.
Bill, microphone.
One of the projects we've been working on, which came up, Sarah Suma actually was the one who thought about it in the first place, is to improve and restore the flower beds, the plant beds that are located along the walls by the administration building. So I think we're going to zoom in on the administration building. But anyway, so we were very fortunate that I had contacted the Rye Garden Club and said, were there any garden people who could possibly help us with the design of this project? And they said, oh, for sure, Peggy Peters is the person to do it. And she has a long history of doing landscaping work in the area, was in charge of the library when they did the major renovation department. And so she's a person who's very active in the community, and we're really fortunate to have her not only help with the design, but she's volunteered to help us with finding the funds to cover for as much as we possibly can through some sort. We're talking about adopt a flower bed, but we'll get back to that. First, Peggy's going to describe briefly what the project is.
Well, I like to do a pro bono project in Rye because I've lived here my whole life, and this one definitely is an interesting, challenging one. I think that we should look at this project differently. We should look at it as not an annual expense, but as a capital improvement expense, a one-time deal, which may take 3 or 4 years of one-time deals, but to try to improve this area, also knowing that at some point in time, we're gonna be working on the walls. See, I've already adopted the "we" thing. So we won't be planting right up against the walls, but the idea is to start with the very front of the building, the arrival area, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. And it will have grasses, it will have some boxwood, it will have, yes, Sarah, we just learned how to do this, like, thing. And have grasses and boxwood, things that will look good all year round. And then each of the 10 beds, 5 on each side of the front arrival area, will have the same boxwood background with a perennial garden in front. And then some annuals should be added in the springtime, not as many clearly as we have now, but just enough to sort of tie it together. But the idea is that we'll have bright colored perennials that attract pollinators. We won't be looking to, cause anybody bee stings or anything, but we know the monarchs come up the sound. We know food that they like. I have beehives at my house. My grandchildren play right near them. I'm not worried about the pollinators hurting anybody, but I do think it's a perfect place to have a vibrant, bright, colorful garden that ties together from one end of the building to the end. Bill has a proposal for you that will only sort of cover the first phase. I'm anticipating that we might be able to so-called sell each of the other bays to the garden clubs, to individuals. I'm not a big advocate of naming opportunities because I don't think this should turn into a columbarium, but I think people will give to these. We're going to connect the whole thing so that they're not these little bubbles all the way down, and bring the bed all the way out to about a foot from the curb. And I think if the commission, where am I? Am I a commission meeting? The commission is able to help subsidize whatever we're not able to raise money privately from. This could be great in 2 years.
Just very quickly, because I know you're in a hurry to cover things. When we asked Peggy to do this, we asked for, give us the total cost of if we did everything all at once, so that we would at least know where this would fit in into whether we divided it up into 2 years or 3 years or whatever. So we got prices from the Hardscrabble Nursery for a total of 128 plants, which would cost $5,800. So these are, the boxwoods are the most expensive ones, but they really are a capital investment. They're going to be around longer than any of us. So, the perennials maybe not so long, and obviously the annuals. But so anyway, that's what they came up with. What we're looking for, and the commission can do obviously whatever you want to do, but we're looking to put it in terms of a 2-year project. Do the areas right closest to where you go into the administration building first. And then, as people see this happening, I think it's going to be a lot easier to do what Peggy said, which will be to encourage people. We have these 8 other panels. You can see that the wall is divided into, I call them panels. And so we would be doing 2, and there's 8 more to go. So that could be something that would go up. But the big expense that we have to do right away is put in the sprinkler system, because you can't really plant plants until you've done that. And that's $1,800? Yes. So that would be the bottom line, and then basically from there going up to a total of $5,000. Is that right? Yes. So that just puts what we're asking for now, as we call it, the ask. So then if obviously we wouldn't refuse other money if somebody had some to give, but we figure this will get us off to a good start. And as we go along, and the friends at Rytown Park have said they will definitely contribute to this project. It's just a matter of how much, but we're thinking that possibly $1,000 might be a number. So are there any questions?
Bill, I think it's a great idea. I've seen a lot of these under planted areas throughout the county, and I looked for I look at Town of Harrison, for example. You look in front of their town hall. You look at Larchmont, the village of Larchmont. A lot of municipalities and other agencies are looking for donations for this work to be, an example like this work to be done, and you get a little plaque, a recognition plaque that they put in, donated by such and such landscape contractor or nursery or something like that. I think with all of the folks in our communities for Wright Town Park, maybe we should reach out and solicit in a way where it's a donation to do this kind of work. I'm sure that you'll find at least a handful of people who want to do this
And we might
at
even
no
go to the city
charge.
council meeting, since it is a thing that's happening in
Yeah.
the city.
I think you can get this done without any expense, because I think there's a lot of people out there who, and companies out there that who would like to rejuvenate this, and that looks great. I think it's, you guys should be commended for it. They put a little plaque in there, donated to and sponsored
So
by.
you're saying,
That's just my opinion.
you're saying we should not do anything until we raise the money, or?
No, I just think you can get this, you might be able to get this done, your whole plan done, by soliciting contractors or nurseries to donate and plant, and they'll have it, displayed as their work of art. It's free advertising, and we get the benefit of beautification. Just a thought. I don't know how they're doing it in other municipalities, but it's a phone call away to find out how they've done it successfully. The entire front of Harrison Town Hall and the park across the street, there's 2 plaques there donated by, and I think there might be 2 separate contractors who did it. I might be wrong about it, but they got something
We are actually
done.
reaching out to the contractors that the town, the Wright Town Park
Yeah.
has, and the guy who does the sprinklers and the guy who does our lawn maintenance, the Greenway.
Yeah.
Have both volunteered to donate some of their time and equipment.
Okay. I'm just thinking that
So
it's a
we're
nice
following
project.
that idea.
Yeah, and then maybe there's another pocket of the park that somebody else wants to take ownership of, quote unquote. I think the park offers a lot of opportunity for beautification efforts. The Labyrinth, for example, has really turned out great. So, I mean, that's just my opinion as one commissioner, that maybe we reach out to entities within, Wright Town and see what we can get.
Yes.
Just a quick question and a comment. Peggy, thank you so much for donating your time. I know that it takes the design to make something beautiful happen, and so I'm excited that you have taken this on. Thank you. My question is with respect to the wall. So if we are going to be doing work on the wall, you did mention that the plantings would be far enough away that we could work on it without.
Immediately far enough away and we can protect them.
Okay.
That was taken into consideration.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think if there's an opportunity to talk about this at the community conversation on May 5th, maybe we could get some donors right then and there. It doesn't seem like $5,800 is too much to.
That was just for the planting, so the total cost is 9,000.
Oh, okay. The total cost. So
That's for the plants.
it's 9,000. 6,000 is the plants and 9,000 is the total.
Well, there's the sprinkler system,
Sprinkler,
which
right.
is an extra 1,800 over, after you pay for the plants, the sprinkler system, which has to be done first, and then he's the guy who does the sprinkler. Well, he's gonna. In other words, we won't pay for the sprinklers. His work will just pay for the actual sprinkler parts.
Got it.
And am I leaving anybody out? No.
I've raised a lot of money in this community, and I know you have to give to get. I've raised quite a bit of money for the Ride-Free Reading Room,
I'll
and
say.
I think that having a sample of what you would like to sell to potential donors is a very exciting thing. And I also think a half-finished, or in this case, it would be a third finished project, is also incentive for people to donate. And I have no problem going to the Rye Garden Club and the Little Garden Club, and I actually was talking to a client this afternoon saying, oh, I got involved in this project, now I'm going to be fundraising, I want to do this. And she said, just let me know. Let me know what it is. My daughter lives over on Rosemere, and she walks her children in the park, and maybe I'll make a donation in her name. So I think you have to show something and show how bad it looks if you don't do something to get people to donate. And I honestly think that that's how you get money. I mean, raised a lot of money in this town for many organizations, so, in Lenoir. So I just, that's my 2 cents. Didn't ask for it.
We did, thank you.
I agree with that. I'm just suggesting you may not need the money if somebody's willing to, you go to a local nursery.
We're incredibly, it's very hard to get labor now. Recently, for the last 2 years, we've had a very hard time getting labor. I think contractors are really at their wits' end with the amount of work that we all have, because the economy's good, but we don't have the workforce that we used to have. Everybody is struggling to get things done, to make money, and I think the big guys are gone. The Nabels are gone, the Shemmons guys are gone, John Deere owns Shemmons now. I mean, it's a whole nother world out there, and I understand what you're saying. I mean, I've driven through White Plains. It's kind of a different thing where, people have given the islands and things. I think this is just a little different, and I think maybe if you could try to sell to after you show somebody what can be done, is a lot easier than showing them a blank wall.
Well, you have the pictures, though. You did have a
I
representative.
mean, who's gonna go out and, I can't, right now, I'm so busy right now, I can make some calls, but I can't go to all the different meetings that I went to raise the $4 million at the library. I just don't have that time now.
No, I don't.
But-
I'm not asking you to do that either.
No, but somebody has to, and Sarah doesn't like to talk. in public.
She does.
Bill likes to talk in public. And so my feeling is that it'd be great if you could just show that you're behind it by contributing to it, and then, just like, when you're raising money, you have to give it back, so. And you didn't ask for that? But you got it.
So the first step is you're looking for a suggestion from the commission?
Looking for suggestion? A contribution? A gesture, yes.
In
No,
terms
I
of an
already
item
had a
in the
gesture.
budget.
We're looking for a contribution.
Well, I think we can just put that in our budget, which we haven't passed yet.
Yeah.
Just put a new line item. And
Once this is done, it's a capital improvement. It's not every single year thing.
Would that make it easier to put it in the budget, if you put it into the capital budget?
well,
What's the amortization?
Capital,
I'm just asking.
plants are not a capital expense. I don't think it would fly under the order.
either way,
$100 sprinkler addition would be.
Okay?
either way, if you're asking for money from the commission, then it should be in the budget,
Yes.
which we will hopefully pass next month. And the commission can further discuss it as a budget item to approve or not approve.
Okay.
I'm
What
sure
were-
that most of the commissioners will be in favor of it.
I just had one. What were the other items, just in terms of, there was the 5,800 for the plants, the sprinkler system of 1,800, and then contractors.
Installation.
So labor.
Yeah, the labor. We need mulch, and we also need to improve the soil, which if you're making an investment, you don't want to put it into soil that hasn't had
Sure.
compost or any kind of enrichment. So the idea is to do it right the first time, and then hopefully it will be maintained.
I can give you the spreadsheet that has the specific breakdown as to what the other costs are besides the plants. I mean,
I imagine that would be helpful.
yes.
Looks
That's
beautiful.
it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Free Reading Room has a request for a story time program, and I know that we do this every year, so you can, I'm gonna guess that we're gonna approve this.
Yep,
So-
I'm only here if you have questions.
Anybody have questions? This is done every single year, and it's a fantastic program. And why don't you say your name for the,
I'm Chris Shoemaker. I'm the director of the Rye Free Reading Room, and we're thrilled to partner with the town each year to be able to provide this service. Last year, we had over 350 people come through and participate in story time, and we look forward to similar numbers this year. So we're asking for 8 Tuesday mornings in one of the pavilions and lowering the parking fee for the morning admission to $2.
is that what we've done last year, Debbie? Yes. All right. Anybody have any questions? All right. Is everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Soul Riders, the Labyrinth plaque. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, thank you. It was a year ago that the commission awarded us the approval to go ahead and install the labyrinth. And I have to say, from the bottom of our organization's heart, we thank you so much. It has really proven to be a wonderful place for our clients, for the families of the clients. We have Bride Presbyterian is starting to have some interest in going there and leading some Bible studies. Thank you.
We thank you because it's a beautiful installation. You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it couldn't have been done without you and Bill and Friends and everybody. It was a good community effort. Now we'd like to get rid of that lawn sign that's there talking about the labyrinth, and we would like to place an engraved plaque on a boulder there. The plaque would have the Soul Riders logo, and it would read, "To all those who have come to this place, may you enjoy the serenity of this pathway as you reflect upon your loved ones and your own journey through life. This labyrinth is for quiet reflection, as well as a space to gather with friends and family. The engraved bricks are dedicated by those who seek to honor, celebrate, and inspire others. Thank you to all Soul Riders supporters for helping to fulfill our mission of empowering those affected by cancer. Dedicated to our community on September 17th, 2017. The plaque we're proposing in black granite. The photograph I sent does not do it justice, but it would be a black granite plaque, approximately 12 inches in height and 18 inches wide, with that dedication engraved on it, and then a boulder just simply large enough to have that plaque permanently affixed to it. The boulder then would be drilled into the ground, and it would be roughly in the same area where that lawn sign is, probably to the left of the opening of the labyrinth.
You have a rendering, not of that, but of another one that's similar to one.
Yeah, it's not a great photograph, but it's to show that it's the black granite. That's what
Yeah.
we really wanted to show you.
Yeah, I think
We
it's-
had investigated and looked at the large sort of, I don't know, the almost acrylic signs that the Historical Society has used, but it just doesn't, in keeping with the park and the labyrinth, and we really thought this was much more back to nature and
Yeah, I think it looks attractive. Right, Commissioners?
Is the plaque is already made?
Yeah.
no, it's not. No, we need to, we'll have to wait for you to give us the thumbs up.
Okay. Do we give her the thumbs up? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now the resolution part of the meeting. Debbie, this is a resolution to reject the trash and recycling bid. Just briefly tell us what this is about.
Yes, as some of you may know, we made a big change in our trash and recycling collection arrangement. About a year ago, October, the village of Portchester stopped picking up our trash and recycling, and we had to go out to bid. So we are currently working within that bid, but just to test the marketplace, we went out to bid again together with when the village of Rybrook put out their trash and recycling RFP, just to see what would come back, if anything would be better. And what we got back was not better. So we're rejecting that bid and sticking with what we have.
Any questions? May I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Call the roll, Debbie.
Acting Commissioner Crescenzi, Acting Commissioner Nardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Salanitro, Commissioner Hurd.
Yes.
Acting Commissioner
Goddard.
Goddard,
Yes.
President Zuckerman.
Yes. Thank you. A resolution to declare 6 dumpsters as surplus.
Coming along with our new trash and recycling arrangement comes dumpsters. So we no longer need the 6 dumpsters we have. In fact, they're sitting in a very ugly way right outside of the enclosure, waiting to disappear. And Sarah Suma has now figured out a terrific way to make them disappear. She's going to sell them on auction. We've just done that We are about to do that with the town's dumpsters. We got great bids on them, and we want to put these out to bid too.
Will those dumpsters possibly be needed by the concessionaire? Are they gonna bring their own? Do you wanna sell it to the concessionaire or hold on to them? Because they're gonna need them.
Honestly, I'm more than happy to offer it to the new concessionaire if they want them. We haven't
thinking.
put them out to auction yet.
Yeah, they're only about 3 years
but-
old, right? 3 or 4 years old.
I honestly don't know how old they are.
Those are the 2-yard dumpsters, right? Not the roll-off containers that we
they're
use for the seaweed and
They're
stuff.
larger than 2. I believe they're
think they're
4 or
4.
6.
Yeah, is that, I'm just saying.
I think they're
we
6
could-
cubic yards.
We could declare it surplus, and then if the concessionaire wants to buy them, they can buy them.
Absolutely true. Yeah,
May I-
we'll take the best offer.
May we have a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Sorry, I just want to be clear. Are you going to offer them to them or no? They're
Well,
too big.
they have to be publicly bid, so it's gonna be on the auction block, so anybody could go on the auctioneer's site and put in a minimum bid.
Right.
We don't have the ability to go right to the concessionaire. I was just saying if it's owned by Right Town Park, we could use that as,
We have to declare it
Keep it.
surplus before we get rid of it. That's what this does.
they can-
Okay, so we're just declaring it surplus here. Sorry.
All right, call the roll, please.
Acting Commissioner Crescenzi.
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Nardi.
Yes.
Commissioner Salanitro.
Yes,
Commissioner Hurd.
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Goddard.
Yes.
President Zuckerman.
Yes. A resolution to authorize the Park Commission President to enter a contract for the procurement of park employee uniforms.
So we, last year, for the first time, we went out to bid for park uniforms. We lowered our uniform expense considerably as a result. That worked well. We did it again. And this time, we got more bids, a few more, I believe. And consistent with the Town of Rye's new procurement policy, we are awarding the contract to S&H as the best value submission. And this is for a couple of reasons, and they're outlined in the resolution. But one of the larger themes in our procurement policy is our sustainability policy. So one of the ways that we measure best value is locality, and this is a local company. In addition, we have history with this company. We've seen them perform very well, both in providing information and goods and whatever we needed when we needed it. And lastly, the difference in price was very small, so we're not going to be spending anything near as much if you count in shipping. So we're awarding to S&H.
Any questions?
Yeah, what do the uniforms consist of?
Mostly T-shirts and sweatshirts and hats. Our park attendants wear very brightly green shirts so that they can be seen by traffic. Each job category has a slightly different uniform with slightly different needs.
And what is the overall cost of the contract?
I don't know yet because we don't know how many new employees are coming on versus old employees. So old employees, we won't be buying as many new pieces of
Okay.
uniform.
And what was it last year? Do we know? Okay. Gary, do Crawford Park personnel wear uniforms? They
Yes.
do.
Yes, we don't have as many personnel.
Right, there's was,
obviously. It's basically the similar
yeah.
T-shirts.
Last year, we spent $6,210 By the way, the prior year, we spent nearly $10,000 on uniforms. So last year, it was down to $6,210. We've budgeted $6,500 this year, just as a modest increase over last year. But as I said, we don't necessarily buy all new uniforms for returning employees. They can use their old uniforms. So we'll supplement if needed.
Any further questions? If not, may we have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Debbie, call the roll, please.
Acting Commissioner Crescenzi,
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Nardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Salanitro,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurd,
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Goddard,
Yes.
President Zuckerman.
Yes. The next item is for discussion only. It's a Park Employee Code of Conduct and Ethics, an employee manual, something that is sorely needed, especially in this day and age. We're only gonna, we're just introducing it tonight. We're not gonna vote on it tonight. I don't think many of the commissioners have had a chance to really look into it. Debbie, just go over the background and then we'll do the next item.
Your, the manual that's in your agenda packet, first of all, starts with a very short code of conduct and ethics, which is a 2-page document that has been used every year for the last several years. And that is the only thing that the Rye Town Park employees have really received in this regard in terms of employee policies. And we're going to be asking them to sign that again. The larger part of the document that you are being asked to consider is a full personnel policy. It is modeled after the Town of Rye personnel policy. I would say that it has been thoroughly reviewed and revised by our Labor Counsel, Vince Toomey, who happens to be Labor Counsel for the City of Rye as well. And we've adopted every one of his suggestions. In addition, Jeffrey Bender has been through it as well, and I've added some things. So what you're going to see is a fairly standard, I think, personnel manual that has been tailored to the needs of our park, which has, by and large, seasonal employees. But it contains things such as an anti-harassment policy and expectations for behaviors policies that are a very good thing for them to have. And we noticed its absence last year.
Questions?
Do you want us to mark this up and give it back to you?
Preferably in Word form, Ben.
No, I got the pen here. I got the pen.
Intention to have it on the agenda for the May meeting to be adopted. And as we're hiring people now, we'll be with your agreement, we'll ask that everybody coming on sign that first code of conduct and ethics, and then when they receive the personnel manual after it's been passed, they will sign to indicate that they have received that and understand what's in it.
Our major capital projects. There is not really much to report on the bathhouse and the ramps. They are basically status quo. The seawall, however, is moving forward. The next item regards a notice of intent to act as lead agency and to extend the services of Beth Evans. Just briefly, there's been interaction between Dolph Rotefield's office and FEMA, and right now the FEMA approval of the revised project is in Washington. It's been approved at the state level, and Hopefully, this will just be an administrative matter, and we'll get final approval. Beth Evans is working on the permits. We need several permits from DEC, and that is what she is currently working on. There have been an interchange back and forth between she and DEC. We also, by the way, have heard nothing negative from the Army Corps of Engineers, so we think that one is finalized. And we're at the point where we need to extend Beth's retainer, and B, issue a notice of intent letter, which we'll get to in a minute. So that's what's happening with the CO. Oh, one other thing. I spoke to Nita Lowy's office, and I will be speaking with Elliot Engel's office. There is a possibility that we can get additional funds other than FEMA, which is paying for 90% of the reconstruction, to get additional funding for the local portion of the wall, which the local portion may be as much as $75,000 or $80,000, and if we can, which would be split between the city of Rye and the town of Rye, and if we can get some additional funds from the federal government in that regard, that would be all to the better. That's being worked on right now. The next item is a resolution to retain and extend the services of Evans Associates. You have that in your packet. There was a limit of, I think, $7,000 for the first contract over the last 2 years, but most of Beth's work now is being done currently, hopefully almost finished, so this latest resolution calls to extend her contract for an amount not to exceed $8,000 for this calendar year. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, a couple of questions. When the city of Rye declares itself lead agency for under seeker, our corporation counsel usually prepares the seeker documents. I don't know fully the arrangement with Mr. Binder. Is he retained as
No.
counsel? No.
No.
He's paid on a project basis?
No, I'm paid on a flat fee.
Flat fee, okay. But per? Year. So it's kind of like a retainer.
Yeah, but he's not,
He's,
I don't bill against it, it's just a flat fee.
Okay.
he's in the budget along with the other professional fees.
And so is this something that we could use you to do? I'm just trying to understand why we're using Beth Evans.
she's the environmental consultant. It's not just to do the seeker. It's to get the permits, et cetera, as well. I know that, I don't know what the arrangement of the city of Rye is, but the work that she's doing is more akin to what Christian Miller does.
And we've used her in the past on other projects.
She's a very well-known environmental consultant.
Very.
And the $8,000 that is authorized or that would be authorized is based on her expectation of what it would cost? That's a
Yeah,
question.
there's a schedule. There should be in there a last year's agreement with her fee
I
schedule.
just see fee schedules.
I believe it's in
Oh,
there,
right here.
her last year's contract.
Okay, so
Her
in
fee schedule.
2016, her anticipated cost was $5,500 to $6,000. So I'm just curious, did she complete it in that range? And if so, why is it going
No,
up?
because she's basing it on an estimate and an hourly rate. So that it exceeded it, so she's asking for an
2016.
additional retainer.
It exceeded it. Sorry. Where am I seeing that it exceeded the 6,000?
I guess based upon actual experience.
Right, so, and what was the bill, do we know?
How much have we spent on her services, do you know, Debbie?
We spent approximately $3,500 in 2017.
Okay. What about 2016? That was, so,
No, nothing.
nothing. So she overestimated then in 2016.
It's always nice to spend not more than and come in less.
I'm just not following why we think it's gonna be more than 2016 and
Well, one of the reasons.
more than double what we
I
actually spent.
imagine Gary can fill in more details. However, the really active work has been going on right now. The Army Corps of it, we submitted one set of applications, and we've received, I think, 3 sets of questions, each from a different agency, each of which had to be answered and resubmitted. The Army Corps of Engineers had questions, the DEC had questions, and that's all billed hourly.
Got it.
As with everything else in this project, it has not gone quite as we had hoped in terms of the speed, considering that this started in 2011, Benny?
Right after Sandy.
Right, so we're trying to bring this to a conclusion.
Right.
And by the way, her expenses are reimbursable.
Through FEMA.
Yeah, because that
At
would be
90%.
considered, yeah, that would be considered as part of the project, as would Dolph's fees be.
So okay, and I'm just trying to get a sense of the 8,000. So this is an estimate that she has prepared.
It's an estimate, that's
Yep.
all it is. It's an estimate. And if it goes over, then she'll come back to us. We're hopeful that we're gonna get those permits
Right.
in the next 30 days or so. But then again, we have to get other permits from an entity called the City of Rye. And because some of the permits that the state will issue are going to have to be dependent on the permits being issued by the City of Rye. And we've been in contact with your planners as to, which permits are going to be required. And there are several.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Okay, and I just have one question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be difficult. My sense is that the September 2016 letter to Dolph suggests that she is going to do the work. She's pleased to offer her services in support of applications for a tidal wetland and coastal erosion management permit from NYSDEC. So this was her bid in 2016 to do the work. I mean, is there,
There's different I gather there's different requirements. This has been going, it's like a ping pong ball with all of the agencies involved, and I've been kind of asking the same question, Emily, you've been,
Yeah.
you are.
Let me tell you
Like
what the
Cindy
latest, let me tell you what the latest is.
Drawn out process.
The woman handling this for the DEC had sent some questions like, what the heck is the Rye Town Park Commission anyway?
Right.
And how is it created? There's like a zero basis of knowledge that I wrote back to Beth to tell them, about the statutory creation, et cetera. Another question that came back from them was, how come you are rebuilding the seawall with an overlook? And since the overlook has not been used since about 2010. And the answer to that is that this is a historic structure, and every part of the park is historic, and SHPO insists that the overlook be restored. So there's a dichotomy. Not only that, but if we change the plans now and not do the overlook, then it requires another modification to FEMA, which would put us back on the bottom of the pile for FEMA approval, and put us behind the 3 hurricanes that happened last year.
Right.
So the answer is that there's a lot of administrative bureaucracy going on that we're trying to fight our way through. And that's really the bottom line with it.
I'm,
And she's being paid hourly.
and I may be coming in at the last, and I am coming in at the last chapter here, but I just don't understand why the cap is at 8,000 when it doesn't look like anything has changed from the prior year. And in her estimation, the cost would be between 5,500 and 6,000. So I'm just wondering
And we spent 3,500.
why. I understand you need a cap, but it's actually not even a cap. The resolution indicates that the services shall not exceed 8,000, and that if it does,
For this
then
year,
would
right.
have to receive prior approval. So I would think you would want, I personally would think that you would want to have a trigger if it, I mean, because do you really want it to get up to 7,000 before you have to seek approval? Especially when
what would
she's
you-
estimated.
Sarah,
that-
what would you suggest? What
I would,
you
I
like?
would, why not keep it to the 5,500 to 6,000, which she herself has estimated?
Right, except for that we already spent 3,500 out of that.
But at least
But that was
it-
for 2017.
Right.
Right,
it-
but her letter covers the entire project and it's dated 2016, so
It just gives you an opportunity to have a conversation
it, yeah.
and start thinking of ways to maybe cut
Right.
costs. The schedule looks identical.
they're the same, except for,
Yeah, it's identical.
well, in fact, one of them went down, senior landscape architect. Oh, no, that's the same.
I'm just looking, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I guess
it's
what
just
I
a
would, yeah,
suggestion.
no, and I would second that suggestion that we put a $5,000 cap in. So she will also act as lead agent or
Our representative.
our representative. And that is all covered under Resolution R 1813.
Yeah, and the resolution doesn't even state a cap. It just says that any amount above 8,000. So you could say any amount above 5,500, which is what she had originally estimated, must receive prior approval.
I think, can I take a stab at, or a guess at this? I think the original agreement dated September of 16, while it was executed, nothing really took place as far as her work effort, even though we did spend $3,500 last year. But the fee schedule that was attached to the 2016 agreement has been updated to the 2018 fee schedule. So I think, if I'm taking a stab at it, that all that's changing is the agreement is the same, just that her fee schedule's changed.
Sorry.
The fee schedule is on page 64.
Yeah, I have a digital version, so I'm just
It's the other way.
doing, oh, this way.
Yeah, so I
Then I
think,
can do apples to apples
so that's
here.
that's my take of what's before the commission tonight, is that
The same.
she's updating her fee schedule.
Yeah.
Everything went up a little bit.
It-
Architect.
A little bit,
And
not
the
a ton.
landscape architect, she doesn't have that,
150.
right?
My math is not very good, but to the percentage increase from 6,000 to
I would
8,000.
stay at 6,000 too. I don't have a
Yeah,
problem with that.
yeah.
But don't,
I mean,
don't
'cause it-
forget,
it-
but don't
her
forget the
hourly rate-
multiplier. So the really active portion, the really active portion of her work is happening right now.
Right, but in 2016, she said she was going to do the whole thing for $5,500.
Yeah, that's before she started
Right.
and realized the
Okay.
various delays.
She,
Just invites
she
a
was wrong.
conversation.
She was wrong. So do we say to her, sorry, you're hitting your maximum, and don't do any more work?
Well, I guess my question is, did we authorize the expenditure back in how did we spend the $3,500?
Through this
So didn't we,
agreement.
Through
This
that, yeah.
agreement. This agreement was signed, Gary, you signed this back in September of 16. It's not dated, but it was signed. So I think this agreement, is she just amending her hourly rate? It seems like that's the only difference that I see.
I think she's amending her hourly rate, and it's saying that it's going to take more work than I thought it was going to take.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we make her exhaust or come to the original contract limit up to 6,000? When we get to that point, then we could entertain an increase to the prior agreement,
That makes sense.
instead of advancing the limit
So
at this
we
point.
withdraw Minutes from the
Yeah, look,
agenda?
she still has, I think the only thing we would have to do is maybe just accept her new rate schedule for 2018, and she still has a limit there that hasn't been exceeded yet.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Did we ever pass a resolution authorizing any kind of, like this one? Well, we've spent money, right? So we had to have
Yes.
approved something.
I think we accepted this contract.
But this
in
isn't a
the form of
contract.
resolution. It's an agreement?
I mean, it's a proposal. I guess, so it does, gives you a range, but did we authorize?
A cap.
We can go
A
back
cap?
to the videotape and take a look back in September. I vaguely remember we did.
Do you understand why I'm confused? Because if we had this in September 2016, and we've already spent 3,500, why is it,
Did the original resolution have a cap?
that's my question.
I don't remember if the original resolution had a cap.
And keep in mind that this current proposed resolution does not have a cap. It's just a
Well, the not to exceed is
approval,
a,
right, but
the
it,
not to exceed is a cap.
but they have to receive prior approval. So they're not saying that, you're not saying that that's it, 8,000 done, You're just saying you need additional approval. And also, it would be helpful to have an explanation as to why she's increased her rates, her hourly rates. Because it's the same, it's this,
Well,
to
well, over 2 years,
Emily's
you could-
point, it's, is there any documentation as to justify that increase in the hourly rate? There may very well be, but I just,
Well, it might be that she changed the rates from 2016 to 2018 as a matter of business course.
Right. No, right. And she says in her cost of services, based on a similar application that we made on behalf of an applicant, Coverly Club in Rye, I would anticipate that the work to complete this would have cost approximately $5,500 to $6,000. Right. As always, we will do our best to keep the costs down, but we cannot predict what revisions or additional information may be required during the permit review process with the New York State DEC and the city. Okay, so,
Basically, what's happened, Emily, is she quoted a certain rate and made an estimate as to how long it would take. And clearly, the process through the DEC and other agencies has taken longer and has cost more on an hourly basis
And I
than
guess-
was foreseen.
and I that sounds reasonable, but I don't think it's clearly because I don't see all we see is an updated fee schedule from her, not an explanation that, here's what's happened, this is taking longer than expected. I guess that's what I'm looking for to justify.
Why don't we just table this until we get more
was just gonna-
information?
I
It
was-
seems like she's got more money in the budget
I
anyway.
mean, do we have time to table it? Because
Yes.
I don't, like you said, Gary, want to go to the back of the bus here.
We're not going to the back of the bus on this. We just have to keep her working without a contract and do it in May.
Can we ask her before she does any more work, what?
She has to do work, otherwise
Well, we really
everything
don't want her to
stops.
stop working, because that would delay our
Well, I don't mean,
projects.
Well, we'll have to just,
We can ask her to come to the May meeting and talk.
well, we can do it nunc-pro-tunc at that point, but I can't ask her to stop, and we're gonna have to,
okay, so then I think I would feel more comfortable with some sort of a amount in this resolution that I feel comfortable with, like Sarah has suggested, or Benny, 6.
Yeah. and then
So that-
see,
why don't we just table the resolution? We'll bring another resolution back.
With some more explanations.
Okay, but if she's gonna keep working, how much money are we gonna be
She
spending?
has a prior
has an
agreement.
hourly rate.
She has an hourly rate on
Right,
a prior
so
agreement.
she's okay
we'll
with that.
go with that. It's only like $10 difference per hour on
Okay.
one or two people.
All right, we'll table that, because we have to get to the next one, which is more important,
Okay.
at least for me. I had sent a memo to the commission regarding notice of intent. The DEC has advised us that they would like a determination of lead agency by the 26th. And this provides, as per my memo, a notice of intent for the commission to be lead agency, and contains a response form for the other possible lead agencies to send back, together with the full environmental assessment form that I had signed back in February, as was prepared by Beth Evans. The notice of intent will go to all of the surrounding municipalities, the City of Rye, Village of Rybrook, Village of Portchester, Town of Rye, Town of Mamaroneck, Village of Mamaroneck, as well as county planning, and of course, the DEC. So, once that goes out, they will have 30, or each agency or entity will have 30 days in which to object to the commission being lead agency. And that includes the City of Rye and the Town of Rye. So, this is to get the ball rolling, because otherwise the DEC will declare itself as a lead agency, which is something that nobody wants to happen. So this does not require a resolution. This just requires the assent of the commission that we send out the notice.
All in favor type of thing?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed?
Agency.
Okay, thank you. The next one is the resolution authorizing the information technology. Debbie, do you want to talk about this? I think we've had some conversation informally with other members of the commission, but go, what is the background, and let's talk about what we need to do and why we're doing it and why it's so important.
For those of you who have been devotees of commission meetings over the years, you will have heard on a repeated basis about the park's infrastructure and how things don't work necessarily as intended. Certainly members of the commission will recognize that we've had challenges from a technological standpoint. There's been dead zones, inconsistent computer service at Rye-Town Park. This year was the year that it became clear we could no longer kick that can down the road. The wire that connected literally the two halves of our network fell down, and the point of sale system that we had, which had been discontinued by Microsoft, the announcement came out that they would no longer support the product either, which meant that security backups would no longer be going out. And our consultant, who had written the customized code for our system, also informed us he would not be returning. So to make a long story short, Computronics, our IT provider, agreed to scramble and find us a POS system.
Computronics is our IT provider because we had gone through an RFP process and had interviewed several IT providers, including Sullivan Data, which does the town of Rye, and A1, which does the city of Rye, and Computronics, which happens to service the village of Rybrook, was ultimately chosen.
We in February approved the new POS system, which comes from Intuit, which will link directly into QuickBooks, which will enable us to get our park sales in a transparent way directly through into our reporting system on a real-time basis. And now we are facing a number of pretty serious infrastructure challenges. First of all, we have to connect the left hand to the right hand. And Computronics has examined a number of options, and of which we've written to you in memos over the last couple of months, and you saw a presentation last month. The smartest, most secure way of doing this is with a trench, with conduit in it that is filled with fiber optic cable, and getting that up and running. We have been the other parts of that are about $28,000 worth of equipment and connectivity to hook in the south booth, the middle booth, and the north booth. And the members of Computronics staff are here.
Parking as well, right?
Pardon me? And the parking booth, yes, thank you. to explain. I would add that we have been working to try to lower the cost of the trench, which the estimate is $21,000. However, if we can take advantage of shared services with our local municipalities, we can bring that $21,000 cost down to $3,000 or $5,000. So we're hopeful that that actually might work. I know I've been in touch with the administrators of all three constituent villages and the city. And I know that the village of Rybrook would very much like to help us out. However, they are very short-staffed and don't think that they can do it, but they would try to help me go out to bid if I wanted to try to do it that way. I have not gotten a word back from the village of Portchester, and I do know that Ryan Coyne had some questions for Computronics, and I don't know whether or not they've connected this afternoon. That's what I've got in terms of have-to-dos. There are a number of other IT projects that would be nice-to-dos, and we can discuss those as well. But
Those are not-
on the immediate.
Those are not on the agenda
On the
now.
immediate is how do we get the point-of-sale system up and running by Memorial Day, which is when we have to start collecting revenue.
Questions?
I mean, Mayor Cohen had asked a question about cost for a wired connection between the middle gate and the north gate, I think.
Yes, hold on. Computronics, would you like to come up?
Good evening.
For those who haven't met, we haven't met, I'm Barry Monet, CEO of Computronics. I actually handle the business aspect and the relational aspect of the technology we provide. And Elliot here is my CTO, with me for 20 years, does the technical side. So that's why we're both here, depending on what the questions are. If I can open up with one quick thing that I'd like to share with you, if I can, very quickly. It comes from Lawrence. That's okay. Your park director. On Sunday, he wrote an email. He said, Elliot, to my CTO, I received great feedback from the staff regarding the new system, much better than last year's. We had no issues, and it worked smoothly. There was a bit of confusion with the reports, but they figured it out. Thanks for your efforts in getting it up and running for us. So we're on the right track. That's the one thing I do want to say. We did get the parking booth up and running, and that's the first step. Last point, and then we'll move on to your questions. Our overall goal is to provide the best technology options while considering the cost as well as speed of execution, getting what you need done, with a focus on transparency in the operations and in finance. And I know that's very important for a town, a city, or a village to make sure that you know what's going on, who's doing it, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, what it's going to cost, and when it'll be done. So that's what we're here to provide you. Would you like me to go right in and address the trench and
Please
the
address
options?
the trench.
Okay. So concerning the trench, and I made some notes, we looked at several options for the trench, and the trench is, as was said, it's a 12-inch hole in the parking lot between the bathhouse and the tower, and it'll have a conduit in it, which we will then pass fiber through. It'll go into both basements, not showing anywhere in the building or attached to the building above ground, which is probably the most expensive option, but the best option in terms of every aspect, environmental, longevity. I mean, obviously the one that was there has fallen down, so it's very hard to predict how long an aerial, which is a connection between two buildings, will stay. We looked at the aerial, and there was two different aspects we had to be aware of. Number one was, could we just replace what was there attached to the two buildings? That would have been difficult because the way it's attached to the boathouse is it actually daisy chains around the back of the building. So the cost to do it and the longevity and our ability to stand behind it would have been difficult. The other way to do it without touching the buildings, because they are historical buildings, would be to put two 20-foot poles, a line across, take those poles down into the ground, dig into the basements, and then wire inside. So when you're talking about costs, that would have cost just as much as trenching, but it's the right way to do it and not touch the buildings. To do just an aerial, which would probably be more temporary, is probably going to cost you at least half, up to 3/4 of the cost of doing it correctly. With the option of possibly having it done by whoever does it in terms of municipalities, you'll save a tremendous amount of money if they'll do the trench, which is absolutely fine with us. Then you're just paying for the cost of putting the lines in and connecting it on both sides. Speed, I told you about the cost, speed. We've got the trench, if we're doing it down to about 2 weeks. Hopefully it could be done sooner if it's going to be done. The aerials would take up to 4 weeks. So again, our recommendation is to do the trench. And if it can be done within the city, the town, or whoever's going to do it, so much the better.
What about the question that Emily had is regarding the connection between Middle Beach and North Beach?
Sure.
And whether or not we could do, there seems to be some kind of a law in the city of Rye regarding aerials that would require us to get I'm not.
Not aerials, it's wireless.
That might require us to get a permit.
That would
So
require.
the question is, well, what about putting a trench in that distance? What would be the,
Well, both answers are possible. So you could dig a trench from the middle to the north. You would probably have to go out into the grass and down and then across, so you'd have to cut across the walkway at 2 points, because I don't think you could do that on the beach side, which might cost a little bit more. There was an existing wireless system from the middle to the north booth. So all we're doing really is replacing it with better equipment that would keep a more stable connection. So it's not so much of permits or clearance or anything. We're replacing equipment that already exists. So if you wanted to do the wireless, we could do that with a better, more stable system, or we can look into digging a trench. We did send one of our guys down there today to look at that, to try to estimate what it would cost to go from the middle to the north, and we haven't received that cost yet.
it would be more than between the bathhouse and the tower, I would assume.
Possibly, but it's walkway versus driveway. So the driveway has, the bumpers for the cars and everything. There's a couple of obstacles in the way. There's walls in between. So they'll have to dig down into the basements, whereas you cut across a walkway pretty quickly.
You also mentioned that there's a difference in the signal between a household Wi-Fi and.
Yeah, I did research the law that the mayor mentioned. The only thing I'm finding in the law, and again, I can't give you legal advice, but the only thing I'm finding is based on cellular wireless, as in Verizon or Sprint or somebody putting up a tower or a building that is dedicated to cellular services. What we're talking about is the same wireless that you're connected to right now. It's not, it's household, it's normally used. You could buy it in Staples if you wanted to. So it's not, I don't know that you need a permit for that in the city of Rye. We're looking into that, but again, if we're replacing equipment that already exists, I would assume if there was some requirement that would have been met at that time.
No, I think it would need to be a new application.
Let me ask you something, Emily, I'm not sure. So you're saying that everybody in the city of Rye using wireless, every household has to get a permit?
No, that's not what I'm saying, but
And this is the same system. It seems that this is the same system that everybody's using with routers, et cetera. Am I correct, right?
Same frequencies. Yeah.
Right.
2 quick notes. Number one is that when I read it, and I'm not interpreting, it did say either a building, a facility, or a tower, which again refers to something that a structure being put up to do this. Those towers, those antennas that were there, the access points, seem to be taken down in the winters and put back up in the summers. In the past, because the wires are still there right now, it just wasn't put back up because, as we understand, it's not working well. So again, to the point, looking to replace it, they seem to be taking down and put. So we're just putting up new ones as opposed to the same old ones. Just another perspective.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to me that what Mayor Cohn was looking at when he saw the word wireless looked like it would fit within the definition, but this seems to be way outside the definition of a system that would require a license or a permit. This is a very similar system to the Wi-Fi that's used all over.
Small business, right.
And in fact, has been used in the park, but we're using new equipment to do it. Right. Okay. Further questions? All right. I'd like approval. This, even though the amount is contract for 51,000, hopefully that is more than will be required, but that's an outside amount. I'm sure that you're going to keep under it, way under it, for this installation. May I have a motion and a second?
This is a contract? You said 51,000? I didn't see that.
In the resolution.
It's in the resolution on the,
The invoices, in other words, the invoices, resolution references the proposals. The proposals.
Oh, okay. But that adds 51,000.
I'm just going to make a comment because I will vote no on this, and my comment is that we can't, what keeps happening, well, or what has happened tonight at least on two separate occasions, is voting on something that has a price tag attached to it that is really not a hard number. And I don't feel comfortable authorizing $50,000 when hopefully somebody will dig the trench and we're going to be down, that'll be $15,000 less. In addition, I'm not comfortable with approving the wireless distribution from the two towers, and I'm not sure if we've adequately decided how we'll address that. So those are just my comments, because when we vote, we don't make comments.
Yeah. Any further comments before we vote?
Where's this money coming from?
The budget.
Is it in the budget? Is it in the old budget? Is it in a budget that
It's
we
in
haven't
our- it's
adopted yet?
It's a capital project. There are funds in our capital account.
You mean their fund balances you're going to use in our?
We have about $65,000 in our capital account. It's cash.
Maybe, well, I guess it doesn't matter. I was going to suggest that we break this down and we vote on each of the projects, because there are three that we're talking about.
There's 4 or 5. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And my preliminary review, which
Seven.
was very brief, was that all the projects, some of them were of a necessity and others were sort of wish list ones, or is that an accurate description?
In the memo, there were both, and the spreadsheet presents both. But what we're voting on tonight is just the necessary stuff. The wish list stuff is, we can discuss it more this evening, but those are separate decisions.
All right. As far as, basically, we're talking about the main building, the tower building to bathhouse trenching project, which is 21.5, unless we can get the municipalities to agree to do it. The fiber network equipment for 2,500.
So we are voting on it, just to
There are
take
several
that 21.5. We don't really know the exact amount that we're voting on because it's based on a presumption of the municipalities
Well,
participating financially.
It's actually not. The high end is based on, you give us a go, we go out and do it the way Computronics has priced it out. That's a hard number. It's
Okay.
21,005. However, we are aware that if we manage to work out an intermunicipal arrangement, it will cost less.
Okay. So the 21.5 represents how much of your capital account in terms of percentage?
Okay, now you're asking for fast math.
Well, just a rough, so you said you have 65,000 in your?
That's right.
So that's.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a
It's a lot.
third.
It's a third.
Yeah. Thank you. I can do that now. I appreciate the help.
no problem.
Basically, this work is necessary to get the park running. Probably should have been done 5 years ago, 3 years ago. The system was put together with spit and rubber bands in the vernacular. And it was only a question of time when it stopped working. And the time is now, and the question is what we're going to do. To have the park operating properly, we need to put the systems in. If they don't go in, the park is not going to operate properly. I don't like the idea of the trenching and the cost of the trenching, and I had sent Barry an email saying, why do we need to spend this money? Can I get some people just to take, what is the money for? And it's not just the trenching, it's the equipment that goes along with the trenching. It's putting in the fiber optic, it's putting in the, the transformers that go on either side of it, et cetera. It's not just building a trench, because
Yeah, but we know that if if anybody would step up and do the trenching, that we would be left with a $3,000 or $5,000 bill. I mean, so it's a significant part.
it is significant. It is significant, but if we're not going to spend money on the trenching as proposed, if the city of Rye or the village of Rybrook or the village of Portchester comes forward and says, we can do it, then we're going to be happily doing it and saving the money. But if that's not going to happen, we still have to have the work done. Barry, what happens if we don't have the wire between the bathhouse and the tower building?
As of this point, we cannot utilize the south.
North, middle.
Excuse me.
Bath would be offline.
Right, that side. So the south is connected to the tower. That's correct.
South and parking would work, permit office would work, park director, everything in the tower, everything from the bathhouse north. would be offline.
So the middle gate and the
North gate
north gate would
and the
not.
bathhouse.
And the which?
And the bathhouse itself.
And the bathhouse
Yes.
itself,
So any computers in there would not attach.
nothing would work.
Correct.
The middle gate, as far as I'm aware, is the most.
Yeah, so nobody would be able to use the middle gate, nobody would be able to use the north gate. Our security in the bathhouse would be compromised.
Right, no, I mean, I get it, and I am very, well, not very, but somewhat well-versed in this issue after a couple of years primer on issues in the city of Rye. So I understand, and I do believe that the trench is the best option. As the city of Rye, who will be paying 50% of the capital costs, right?
40%.
40%. I just struggle with the option that it's either you dig the trench, or maybe Rybrook or Portchester will do it, but it doesn't seem like we're getting any yeses from them.
Rybrook said no.
Okay, so we've got Portchester as an option. So either you dig it, which will cost our DPW, which is also understaffed and overworked. It's just not a great option. I do understand the need to do it. But I would love to hear from Portchester first.
Well, we have a motion and a second on the table. I don't know if we're going to ever hear from Portchester. I don't know if they have the ability. It's more likely that either Rybrook or the city of Rye would do it. We haven't heard from the city of Rye. And this is an authorization. We're not spending money just to spend money. We're not spending money because we want to. And
Right, and I'm not saying that. I hope that's not coming across that way. I'm just,
all right,
I
let's-
just want to know that Portchester's off the table.
They haven't said no.
They haven't said no.
And if they say yes, then we'll save some money. Because it's up to, we're not entering into a contract for $21,000 to do this work.
Right, so can we separate these? Can we vote on this alone? Because I do have a problem with the wireless piece of it, but I would vote yes on this as long as I've got your commitment that we're going to get a definitive answer from Portchester. I know you're working on it.
Absolutely have my word on that. We can get a definitive
I
answer.
mean, I understand the importance of this, but I don't feel comfortable voting yes on the entire
So do on the course.
infrastructure proposal before
We're going to
us.
separate it, Jeff, we can,
We'll do it by the proposals, 5488, we'll reference that.
Jeff, we'll finalize the resolution afterwards.
5488, yeah.
Okay, I'd like an amendment to the motion. Amendment to the motion. The motion will be to enter, to approve all of the proposals, other than the wireless to the,
I think we could just do 5488, which is the $21,500 bid.
you just want to do that one? What about all the others?
No, what you want to leave out is the part where there's the point-to-point wireless between the middle gate and the north booth. That's a specific proposal. We can certainly separate that out. But then the other parts where we're hooking back up.
Let me just say, is your concern that the wireless is a distributed antenna system that the city of Rye, had issues with in terms of the placement of these antennas all over? These are cellular antennas. I don't think that this is a distributed antenna.
No, but sorry, go ahead.
The statute or the code or the issue in the city of Rye, I think, had to do with the proliferation of these very small cellular antennas that were being put up on telephone poles and light poles to provide like an infill from these big macro tower sites that weren't getting
You're
This is not that.
Right, and you're correct that that was the most recent issue that has come before the city with respect to Chapter 196, which is our wireless siting law. But this, I do believe, might fall under it, and I would love to have our corporation counsel weigh in on it.
So was that a separate
I would say
proposal?
if we can get the south booth and the middle booth up and the parking booth up and running, and we leave the north booth closed, we can exist. The last year we did about $40,000 in revenue at the north booth. That's compared to $306,000 at the middle booth and $81,000 and change at the south booth.
Well, if we get Portchester to trench, the 150-foot long stretch, we could ask them to trench. The other, it is a preferred, it is a stronger signal, it's a better system.
Absolutely.
So to connect everybody in a wired way would,
Emily, let me make this suggestion. We don't know what's going to happen with who's going to do the trenching at this point.
right.
I understand your concern, although I don't agree with it, with the number 5512, which is the point-to-point wireless from middle to north, correct? Right? That's the one,
I'm trying to find it here. 5512.
Here it is. From middle
Point
to
wireless
north.
from middle to north booth,
And that was 70.
7,100, 7,500.
right? That's the one you're concerned with.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is change the resolution so that take out the, what is it, $51,000?
For the whole thing?
Yeah. Subtract 7,500 from that. And say that, let me just go back to the resolution. That we're going to approve all the proposals except for 5512, and we can rework the exact language and vote on that. Is that acceptable?
5512.
It's the 7,500.
Yep.
Okay, is that acceptable?
And this does not include 5509, which is the public core Wi-Fi system, which
No,
is the
no,
future
no,
consideration.
no.
That isn't even on the agenda.
Okay, so could we just walk through exactly what we're covering? And we can do it quickly?
Right, the trenching.
So
and-
5488 is the tower to bathhouse trench wiring at a cost of 21.5. I'm just looking also for a total bill here. The fiber network equipment, 5510,
Correct?
2500. 5490 is the additional,
5488.
oh, that's
That's already the 21.
21.5, right? I'm sorry, I'm following.
The
So there's
network-
two 21
Do you want to
fives?
maybe lead this?
Oh, sure, I'd be
Yeah,
happy
that'd
to.
be, yeah.
I'm looking at it from, just so you know, the original narrative that was presented at the last meeting. So I'm going to go down the list that I have it here, and I actually might not be in your order. So you did say 5488, which is the transit 21.5. You did say 5510, which is the fiber network equipment at 2,500.
Numbers, yeah.
There was also 5490, which is the additional network wiring, boathouse to tower for 5,000. There's 5511, which is the network connectivity equipment, which is switches and patch cords for 3,500.
And the south gate.
And then there is,
Remote access. Include that?
I'm sorry?
Remote access?
No, I have that separately.
I have it in there.
Let's see.
The replace south gate booth wiring to tower, quote 5525, is 3,500. And the last one?
Remote access VPN P2P with town for QuickBooks access is 5505 and 5506 for 6,153.
Correct.
How much?
For how much?
6,153.
So it's
That's what I
42,150.
5506.
So
That's
42.
42,150.
42,150.
And there's a possibility we could get that down by
It's a possibility,
15. Okay,
possibility, okay?
great.
All right. May I have a motion and a second as amended?
Not to exceed 42,150?
9,000. Oh, we're including the 21.5?
Yeah,
Yes.
21.5, 25.5, 35, 35, and 61.
Basically, it's 70, it's the whole package minus the 7,500.
My spreadsheet tells me it's 49,653.
Not right
No.
now, Bill, thank you.
Yeah, 49,653 is with the 7,500. We're taking that 7,500 out. And I took the $3 out because it confuses everything. I just put a zero on it.
The number, Benny?
42,150.
42,150.
Three.
Is that acceptable to
Yes,
Computronics? That
Yes,
number?
it is.
Okay.
Let's just round it down to
May I have a
40.
motion as,
42,000.
150. Yeah.
okay. As amended, may I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion
Second, please,
Second.
on the,
on the amended for the 42, whatever. Okay?
just on the question, can you just also add on the amendment, just reference that the money is coming out of the capital fund? And there's probably should be something in there that Computronics is a vendor that we've vetted, or we have a means of engaging in a contract under general municipal law through solicitation, et cetera. Like, we didn't pick them out of a hat.
No, I think it's already in the resolution.
It's not, that's why I meant, that's why I wanted to throw it in there.
As amended, call the roll, please.
Acting Commissioner Crescenzi.
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Nardi.
Yes.
Commissioner Salanitro.
Yes.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Goddard.
Goddard,
My
Yes.
oldest friend here. President Zuckerman.
yes. Thank you. All right, thank you. We'll adjust the resolution accordingly and send it around.
Yeah, we
Okay.
should probably investigate the other parts to add that at the next meeting. The city, the city rules.
All right, now, Bill?
I'm just, I'm asking a question that may have been answered. At one point, I heard him say that there will not be any service to the north.
That is correct.
So is that what you just voted
At this
for?
time, at this time,
So everybody will have to walk down to the Middle Beach?
at this time,
That's correct.
at this time, until we get more information on interpretive understanding of the city rights code.
And the only reason I bring it up is because one of the big complaints I have, that I hear when I'm at the park, is that frequently they would close the north booth, and then people who live in the area would end up having to walk all the way around, and those are the
Well,
neighbors of the
probably,
park.
it probably does affect City of Rye residents more than others,
Yeah.
but the city representatives feel strongly that this may be affected by their own wireless law. Personally, I don't think it does, and I think that the council for the City of Rye could discuss that with Computronics, or their professionals can, your IT people can as well. Okay?
Great.
So this matter is finished. The next matter is not one of great importance. It's the concession agreement. Nobody's interested in this, I'm sure. Let me just say that there has been a great deal of work done on this. It's been done, and I commend the commissioners because we tried to keep it within the commission because there were a lot of issues that had to be discussed. And the agreement itself is approximately 60 pages long. There were terms that were negotiated. You can imagine, we had several municipalities. People had different views. We had a new administration come into office in January when the first drafts had already been circulated. I think that the work is actually not quite complete. I'll be honest with you, there are 4 issues that have been raised, and I think that they can be settled, but we do not want to wait any longer to enter into the agreement. And I've asked the commission attorney to look at it, and I've suggested language that will enable us, I believe, to pass a resolution tonight authorizing me to enter into an agreement. And Jeff, just read the whereas clause, because we need the consent of the representatives from the City of Rye for this. This is a very unusual process in that both the supervisor of the town of Rye and the mayor of the City of Rye actually have veto power over the enactment of the agreement. We each have to approve. And what I would, pardon me?
Resolve clause.
Just the resolve clause.
So the resolve clause will read as follows. Resolved that the Rye Town Park Commission hereby authorizes President Gary Zuckerman to enter into the attached 20-year concession agreement in substantially the form annexed hereto, with any substantial changes subject to the approval of both the supervisor of the town of Rye and the mayor of the city of Rye.
I'm sorry, can you read the second part of that sentence one more time?
to enter into the attached 20-year concession agreement in substantially the form annexed hereto, with any substantial changes subject to the approval of both the supervisor of the town of Rye and the mayor of the city of Rye.
And, sorry, the first part again?
Resolved that the Rye Town Park Commission hereby authorizes President Gary Zuckerman to enter into the attached 20-year concession agreement in substantially the form annexed hereto, with any substantial changes subject to the approval of both the supervisor of the town of Rye and the mayor of the city of Rye. You're
So
going
is that-
to ask me to define substantial.
No. I'm just, so that means that Supervisor Zuckerman can enter into the agreement so long as the city of Rye, mayor, and he both agree.
It's the intent.
That's the intent.
That's the intent.
Okay.
Is that okay with the city?
He's not here to weigh in.
The language that he had provided, the mayor of the city of Rye, I mean, we're just talking about semantics now, because I think the intent is there. Authorize the president and the commissioner representing the city of Rye.
Well, he can designate.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's okay.
All right, I just want to say that we will have a copy of the concession agreement available for the public within the next day or so. And
After it's executed. You gonna
I,
execute it first?
pardon me?
You gonna execute it first, upon execution, then you're gonna post it, or before?
Well, you know, normally the draft might be posted. We'll figure that one out. But certainly it's a public document. And as soon as we get the final terms, as I say, there are only 4 issues. And I believe they're all resolvable within the next 24 hours. But if we want a concessionaire in the premises, I don't know, they're in the room, and I think at this point we can reveal the identity. Is there an objection to revealing the identity? Benny, at this point,
I don't have any objection at this point.
since it's going to be published? The concessionaire will be in the name of 3 guys, and it is the current operator of the Barley House in Thornwood. The process by which they were chosen was an extensive one, and it involved members of the commission and members of the public. Commission was what, Dennis? And who are the 2 commissioners on it? It's so far,
Fritz?
it's Fritz.
And
Well,
Julie
Dennis-
Killian.
Dennis originally, and then Fritz Falanka, and Julie Killian from the city of Rye, and Dan Tartaglia from the town of Rye, and Russ Gold from the city of Rye. And it was an extensive, and of course Tracy Lawler, our consultant. It was an extensive process. It was not an easy process. And I just want to commend everybody who participated. I want to commend, and I'm saying this prematurely because I'm assuming that this will be finished within this week. But I want to thank all of the commissioners from the town of Rye, the city of Rye, village of Rybrook, village of Portchester. It was a give and take. There were views expressed, and you saw it here tonight, that not all of the commissioners had the same views of what should be in the agreement. Tracy was a very positive factor as our consultant, in constant contact with the concessionaire and conveying the commission's wishes directly to them. And I especially want to commend Dan Tartaglia, who not only was on the committee, but volunteered, and I'm sure he regrets it now, volunteered to do this 60-page agreement. And it is my estimation that if this work was not done pro bono, it would have probably cost the commission at least $20,000 or more in legal fees. And Dan was very patient mostly, and sometimes not so patient, with all of the parties. He did a yeoman's job, and I know that everybody thanks him for that effort. And let me just say one thing about the city of Rye. I know, to me, sometimes they're really a pain in the derriere, but in actuality, they have made some very, very good constructive suggestions from the original draft that was very positive. And I know that that caused some angst for the concessionaire, but I think overall it was a process. I would have loved to have this done in December or January, not at the end of April. But it is what it is, and my view is it's better to get a good agreement than a fast agreement. And I also want to thank the concessionaire, three guys, all of the three of them, who stood with us through this whole thing, wondering when we were going to get it signed. And I believe that you do have plans in front of the Rye City Building Department. Is that correct? You can shake your head. I hope so, so that we can get the work done quickly. And I want to also thank especially their counsel, Aldo Vitigliano. Aldo and I have somewhat of a history, he having run against me for the position that I now hold. But Aldo was a gentleman and very professional through this entire process, working closely with Dan. And I can't say enough good things about the other side and how they conducted themselves. They didn't get angry at us too much, I don't think. And I think we're basically we are there, except for a few minor details. And hopefully we will have the restaurant up and running as soon as possible. And that.
Need a motion on that?
Now that I made those remarks, may I have a motion and a second?
Make a motion.
How about somebody from the city of Rye second?
No second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Acting Commissioner Crescenzi.
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Nardi.
Yes.
Commissioner Salanitro.
Yes, and thank you to everybody involved in this open process.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Goddard.
Yes.
President Zuckerman.
You're going to forget me, huh?
Oh, never.
Thankfully, yes. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Are we adjourning into executive session? Or no? No.
We're done.
Okay. When are we going to discuss the final issues on the concession agreement? Over. Okay.
Motion,
to adjourn?
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.